lesson 1 of the Management Information Systems series. In this lesson, we'll be looking at chapter 1, that is the Introduction to Information Communication Technology, ICT. In this lesson, we will look at the following subtopics: overview of computer systems, computer hardware, computer software, programming languages, ICT personnel, role of ICT in business environments, information centers, and finally, factors that impact on ICT. So let us get right into it. The first subtopic, we will begin with a definition. What is a computer? The most popular definition of a computer is, it is an electronic device that is used to process data according to some pre-programmed set of instructions. In other words, you will input data, some raw data, and out of it you will get useful information. But what happens between the data and the information is what we are calling the pre-programmed instructions. system software and application software. Application software. So if we can start with system software. What is system software? These are programs that are primarily charged with the duty of telling the computer what to do. In other words, they manage the operations of the hardware directly. The most commonly known system software is the operating system. The operating system, you will have come across Windows, Linux, the disk operating system, and so on and so forth. Those are operating systems. They are the ones that control the operations of the computer. But apart from the operating system, there are other types of programs which fall under system software. These include things like disk defragmenters. Disk defragmenters. There are compression programs. There are antivirus programs, and so on and so forth. These are programs that the user does not deal with directly, but they are useful for the operation of the computer. So that is system software. Moving on, application software. What is application software? This is where the user is directly involved. They are used for day-to-day productivity. You use them to perform specific tasks such as producing a brochure, working out some financial calculations. If you needed to edit a document, you will use application software. So some examples of application software would include things like word processors, very common. There are spreadsheets. There are media players. There are database programs. And the list is endless. The bottom line is that they are used for performing specific tasks. If I wanted to play a song, I will use a media player. If I wanted to keep records of data, I will use a database. So as a summary, we have looked at what a computer is. We have said it is an electronic machine that processes data according to some pre-programmed instructions. If you can quickly go through this diagram, we have the computer in the middle. It is made up of two major components. You've said there is the physical part, which is hardware, and the programs, which is called software. Under hardware, we have discussed the several categories, including input hardware, which can be broken down into manual and automatic hardware. And in manual hardware, we talked about keyboards and mice and other such devices that require the intervention of a human being to input information. Automatic, we have given the examples of barcode readers. There is mark readers of various kinds. In this same category, we can add biometric devices and so many others. They are automatic because they automatically input information into the computer. As part of hardware, we've talked about output devices, which are used to output information from the computer for use by the user. So there are printers, speakers, and monitors as the major devices there. Then there was storage devices, which we have mentioned as magnetic storage, which majorly comprises of hard disks. Then there is the optical storage devices, which compose of the CDs, DVD, and Blu-ray discs. And solid-state storage, which is becoming quite common now. This is where flash disks will fall under. Then, of course, there is the important category of processing hardware, in which we have talked about the CPU and the graphics processing unit. Moving to this other side, the other major component of a computer is software. And under software, we have said the two major categories are application programs. And as we have said, these are the programs which use to perform specific tasks: word processors, spreadsheets, database programs, and so on and so forth. Then the other major category of software is system software, which is used to control the operations of the computer. And the most important system software we have said is the operating system. This is where you have Windows, Linux, and the like. But apart from the operating system, there are these other types of software which fall under system software. There are antivirus programs, file compression programs, disk defragmenters, and so on and so forth. So we move on to our next subtopic, which is programming languages. What are programming languages? These are programs that are used for creating other programs. In our previous subtopics, we have talked about software. All these types of software have been created using a programming language. In other words, they are the ones which make the instructions which will then control what a computer does. So programming languages have evolved over time. Those who were born in the 70s will remember the likes of Fortran, COBOL, and so on and so forth. So they will be categorized using different criteria, including object-oriented versus procedural languages. There are scripting versus programming languages. There are compiled programming languages and dynamic programming languages. But the scope of this syllabus does not allow us to go into a lot of detail on programming languages. So on that note, we'll move on to the next subtopic, which is ICT personnel. What do we mean by ICT personnel? ICT personnel basically are the people who work in the ICT department. And when we talk of hierarchy, we are talking about the different levels, starting from the manager down to maybe the technicians. What I will do is a quick mention of some of the personnel, key personnel in the ICT department. In some organization, they will have an ICT manager. So this top part of the hierarchy will really depend on the particular organization. Some of them will call them managers, others will call them coordinators, and so on and so forth. So this is a top person in the ICT department. Or if in some organizations, you will also have the CIO, the Chief Information Officer. Okay? And under him, you'll have personnel in different departments. So what comes under here is not necessarily a hierarchical structure, but I will just mention some key personnel and what their roles are. So an important part of the ICT department are network administrators, and here they are primarily responsible for keeping the network running and secure. They are also the people who will assign different users privileges and permissions to different parts of the system. Another key person in the ICT department is webmasters. Not all organizations will necessarily have webmasters, but for those organizations that have a website, they will have a webmaster in many cases. This is a person in charge of keeping the site running and up to date. So they will collect information from the organization and ensure that whatever needs to go to the website goes to the website, and whatever needs to be taken down is taken down. Another key personnel are system analysts. System analysts are very key, especially when a new system is being developed. These are the people who will analyze an existing system. They will find out problems with an existing system and recommend solutions. Other types of ICT personnel may be people like technicians, very key. Just about every organization now will have some ICT technicians who are responsible for supporting the users. They will troubleshoot hardware problems, software problems, and ensure that the ICT infrastructure in an organization is running. In some cases, we can talk about developers. And developers are basically the ones who are charged with creating new systems. So these ones will be the programmers. They will be the web designers. They will create new systems. Not every organization will have an in-house developer, but they are also key ICT personnel. So our next subtopic is the role of ICT in business environment. How is ICT typically used in a business? One of the key ways it is used is to aid in decision making. With the use of ICT, it ensures that managers have in hand information and data in a summarized form that will enable them to make key decisions for the organization. So decision making is one of the important things that you will use ICT for. Another role of ICT is communication. Communication is key in any business. So there will be internal communication through an internal email system or an internal telephone system. But there is also communication with external parties such as customers, suppliers, and so on and so forth. ICT is key in communication for any modern business. Then there is record keeping. The need to keep records for a business cannot be overemphasized. Every modern business will have some sort of a database. The database might be the database of products, customers, suppliers, and so on and so forth. We are now going to look at some examples of how ICT is used in different business environments. The way ICT is applied is really dependent on the business environment. While one person might use ICT primarily for communication, somebody else might use it for more specialist applications like expert systems or even financial models. Or even generating financial models. In most sectors, ICT will primarily be used for communication. That is communication via the internet, through email, through electronic conferencing, and probably through mobile phones and also internet telephony, which has become quite common. Another way ICT is used in business is for publicity and, say, corporate image publications. These include things like letterheads, brochures, flyers, business cards, and so on and so forth. Another area ICT is commonly used is in the manufacturing industry. In manufacturing, ICT may be used for product design. It may also be used in assembly plants. The manufacturing sector also uses ICT for production line control, amongst other uses. ICT is also commonly used in finance department across different areas. In this, ICT may be used for billing systems, stock control, as well as payroll management systems, among other uses. Another area ICT is commonly used is in schools. So in a school, ICT may be used for a school management system. It might be used for keeping records. It might be used for managing the finances. It might also be used for generating student reports, etc. Another area ICT is now commonly used is in booking systems. For example, airlines make use of a lot of ICT for ticket booking, cancellations, and the like. Customers no longer need to visit a travel agency to book a ticket or to cancel one. They can use ICT right in the comfort of their homes to book for flights and schedule them. Booking systems also include theater booking systems, cinema booking systems, as well as other types of shows that might require booking before attending. Another common application of ICT is in the banking industry, and there are numerous ways ICT is used in banking. This is where you will talk about things like ATM machines. There is EFT, which means electronic funds transfer. There is the use of credit cards and debit cards. There is phone banking and the now common internet banking. Okay. ICT is also very common in medicine now. In medicine, ICT may be typically used for keeping patient records, hospital and pharmacy records. It is also used in ICUs and the like for monitoring patients, as well as expert systems used for diagnosis of diseases. Another common application of ICT is in libraries. Libraries typically use ICT for keeping records of their books. They also keep records of their customers, as well as borrowing records. ICT is also quite widely used in the retail industry. In retail, ICT is used for stock control. There is point of sale systems, internet shopping, and also automatic reordering. In conclusion, we can say ICT has permeated the business environment right across different sectors, from medicine to research to retail and also to banking. We will now look at factors that impact ICT. What are some of the factors that will impact how ICT is used in a society in general? One of the common factors that will influence the use of ICT is cultural factors. Some societies will be more accepting of ICT than others. Others will see it as a threat before fully embracing it. So cultural factors are important. Second, we can talk of economic factors. This includes things like affordability, accessibility, and so on. While in some societies, ICT may be very accessible and affordable, in some others, it is well beyond the reach of the common man. Another factor that may impact the use of ICT in a society is legal issues. In most places, there are now laws that govern how ICT is used. There are laws on data protection, there are laws on privacy, and the like. Businesses are required by law to keep the data they collect secure. There is also the example of the use of systems like the iTax system, where businesses are required by law to make their returns online. Another important factor that will impact the use of ICT is socio trends. Most businesses now have moved some of their operations onto social media. A lot of advertisers are now moving from traditional advertising methods, that is brochures and flyers, onto more sophisticated methods across different types of social networks. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to having you in our next lesson.